Bungie isn't being honest. We're in the post-sex glow of the final shape, and I, at least, am very satisfied. Satisfied from balls to bones. That banger of a DLC was all that, and it played its chips. Now, we're on to the new episodic promise of Bungie, and it's a lie. I think we all need to agree that Bungie needed to lose the 4-season structure that had existed for years now. They have said it's too heavily resource hungry to produce over the period of a year, whilst their other teams are working on the DLCs. It's just too much. Obviously, the DLCs are a cash cow of Bungie, and the content in between is the way to keep players engaged over the year. This keeps active player count up and retention up. In marketing, the focus has moved from acquisition of players to retention of players. Obviously, there is much less work to do as a company if the customer is familiar with the product, so upsell for in-game content and new DLCs becomes a much easier proposition. Less work for the same money. But we have been greedy little piggies consuming 23 individual seasons since 2018 and getting very angry or moderately appeased by the delivery of each season. But on the supply side, fatigue had started to show at Bungie HQ. The seasons were just too heavy a burden. Change was needed, reduce seasons, or change the format to lessen the amount of work. Bungie's issues, I assume, were that you just can't remove a full season and still charge the same money. Bungie knew that removing a full season would either mean that they take a cut in the yearly seasonal pricing, or they reframe it in such a way, reducing the production overhead. So what's the solution here? Introducing episodes. If you're familiar with a lot of police procedural shows that overpopulate TV, you'll be familiar with episodic drama. Most TV series have two approaches to storytelling: season-long story arcs or standalone episodic stories. TV studios have been much more comfortable with standalone episodic structures, since they're easier for audiences to consume, since you don't have seen previous episodes to follow the narrative. The Star Trek TV series has long used episodic structures for the original series, TNG, then moved out of it for series like Discovery and Enterprise, then back into it again with Strange New Worlds. The core principle is that it does not ask as much from the audiences. You don't need to have watched all episodes to follow along the adventures of your favourite ensemble of quirky characters and what they get up to each week. It seems like a no-brainer to use this CSI Destiny format, right? Maybe they can create an immersive, character-led experience that will put multi-season storytelling masterpieces like Babylon 5 to shame. It's possible, right? Here's what I think that conversation looked like at Bungie HQ. We can't keep doing seasons. We know the players want more. But we can't afford to deliver mini DLCs with complex storytelling, new environments to play in, and unique mechanics for quests that take up way too much time to design and develop and fully test and deploy in time. So here's my awesome idea. What if we threw off the shackle of costly seasons and replaced it with 3 bigger episodes? We can frame it in such a way that we can still drip feed the content in the same way, but break them into tighter narrative acts with pauses for a few weeks between each act, so we can set the stage, deliver a revelation or a surprise at the end of each act, and then the third act would have the resolution. So Act 1, set the stage. Act 2, the reveal. Act 3, the resolution. We could have more time to pace out story beats, and in the end reduces the production overhead. This will allow for more details in our environments, impactful storytelling, and produce bigger, more complex, exotic missions and activities. We can build bigger and better content. It would solve all of our problems and reduce that seasonal overhead. When Bungie announced that there was a brand new system of storytelling coming after the final shape, we were mostly excited to see what this was going to entail and how in detail this was going to be fleshed out over smaller act periods. Would this actually be more in-depth storytelling laid out over a year, but staged in a standalone story system? Now that episodes are here and we've seen Act 1 and next week, Act 2 drops, can we see the better solution to the seasonal problem? So the The problem for me, at the very least, is that the narrative execution has not changed, and how the approach to delivering a contextual story hasn't changed. We believed that there was a vision in place for Destiny's episodic storytelling. I don't want to get too dramatic here, since the new weapon frames and seasonal drops are pretty solid. New activities, fine, if not a little just lackluster. Plus, most of us had worked out who the central villain for this episode was going to be at the very beginning, and with the spoiler cutscenes now doing rounds, it seems we're right, but I won't go into that. At least, there were some deep lore threads being pulled, which does delight my shriveled black heart. The drama is that Bungie had sold us the lie that episodes were the solution to seasons not working. But in reality, the promise of more in-depth story and activities comes from the time and resources saved in reducing the workload to 3 releases and not 4, then reframing the entire delivery system into episodes and not seasonal. This is a classic bait and switch. I took this directly from Bungie.net. We've built episodes to deliver more meaningful reward paths tied to your journey, while ensuring there's lots of secrets to discover, solid reasons to return each time a new act launches, and exciting build crafting opportunities to take on new challenges. Here's my fundamental issue, and it's a psychological one. Gaming narrative is, in its peak form, immersive. It's intoxicating and addictive, all the bad words. It's why players get so entrenched and overly zealous in opinion, and ultimately become very protective about the IP and changes made to it. It's also why toxic traits in gamers tend to be more pronounced here than in a lot of other kinds of formats. I love to binge. I think a lot of people do love a binge, whether that be TV or gaming, books or whatever. We reserve the time and the headspace to be drawn into a world and sold a language, the beauty, the characters, and emotional connection. We live here with the characters while the experience continues to evolve. Now, what if we pull the immersive experience apart, slow down the consumption, drip feed the addiction with smaller bites of what they love? Since the introduction of seasons, the reactions have been very much hit and miss affairs. We've had our Naruto-style filler seasons and banger seasons. We've had our ups and our downs. It's been a roller coaster of player retention and reaction. The language from Bungie on the seasons only changed when player sentiment got really bad around how factory-like the seasons have been, especially with the regurgitation of the Season of the Plunder, reuse lost sectors, throwaway seasonal plots, and the same amount of grind as most seasons in fairness. Most of that season, we were just making fucking tea. Tea, for fuck's sake. Bungie got on its pulpit and promised change again. Now here's where we are after the final shape, and the long-awaited episodes have dropped. And, well, one episode has mostly dropped. And they kind of remain underwhelming. Well, I'm underwhelmed. The narrative hasn't changed. The execution has changed frequency, but not deployment. As I sat there watching the developer livestream of the Echoes Act 2 Battlegrounds and listening to the announcement that Bungie would cluster the narrative beats and release them all at once per act, I thought to myself, there's actually no overall vision for this big change. They have changed up the delivery of the act system to placate the player base. Not that there was a grand payoff to why they had swapped over to an episodic format. Here is the heart of the lie. The lie is framing episodes as the fix to keeping the base engaged and fed with content. Yes, Bungie had listened to the player base, saying we can't see any difference between seasons and episodes, and decided to release all the story beats all at the same time. The visionary immersive storytelling that I grew to love over the years of playing Destiny and Destiny 2 doesn't reach the heights of the kinds of narrative and gameplay you get with a hand-stitched DLC, lovingly told, with the resources and attention to detail and execution. What I wanted to hear was that there was a grand vision for this style of storytelling that would be immersive and addictive, and we have solved that problem. That was the connective tissue between the expansions. I wanted to hear there was a vision, there was a plan. Episodes are a by-the-numbers execution of seasonal content reframed by Bungie to reduce the workload of the individual teams. That's all. It's fine, but there's no great answer to the seasonal problem. Gameplay and weaponry are still fantastic in-game, and we have our seasonal activities, ritual stuff to do, and maybe some PvP when I have the mental space for it. There's enough to do in-game, and of course the final shape was an absolute banger, with all the emotions and notes to close the chapter on this Light and Dark saga. It was a beautiful close to a 10-year addiction, and I'm glad to keep on playing and stalking my past love. But now, I need to do a bit of reframing myself and explore what is beyond Destiny. As Bungie prepares to open a new chapter and keep flogging that seasonal episodic horse, I'm going on my own journey of feeding my narrative addiction from a rich selection of other games that are out there now. Take a chance on other games and get that excitement that you feel from a new game drop that needs exploring and shooting. Don't get me wrong, I will keep an eye on where Destiny goes with Frontiers, but I want to taste other fruits and see if I can find the same kind of experiential buzz that will challenge and get me excited. I want to know if you think the same. Are the new episodes feeding your narrative itch? Leave your comments in the section below. And I'm Neph, and make sure to drop a like and a follow, and join me on the next one.